Whenever you want to go, that's great.
Yeah, we're live there now. David, if you want to get started there.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, well, I
Excellent.
just give an introduction just on the agenda there itself first. So
I can
hello,
even
everyone.
go to the agenda if you like.
Yeah, perfect. You're all very welcome to this postgraduate study in history webinar there. Firstly, we'll hear from Dr. David Fleming, head of our history department, just to highlight all our postgraduate history programs here in the Department of History. And then we'll move on to a current student and alumni panel session. And then finally a Q&A session where you can post your questions into the chat function, or you can unmute your mics. You'll have the power to unmute your mics once they're at the end of the session there as well. So I'll hand you over to David firstly, just to give an overview of our postgraduate programs within the faculty there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Una, and welcome everybody. It's I can't see you, but it's certainly great to have you on board for this webinar. And we've done a few of these webinars before, but this is really an opportunity for you to hear, not necessarily from me or from the course directors of our 5 programs, but to hear about the experiences that some of our current students and some of our more recent alumni might have had as part of the program. So we're joined by Stuart Clancy, Pierce Grimes, Kieran O'Griffa and Naomi Rice, who will be taking over and be largely engaging with you for the webinar. But my job is to introduce really what history is like at the University of Limerick. And the first thing to say is it's rather exciting, it's vibrant. We have somewhere between 30 and 40 MA students at any one time. It varies because some of our programs are taught are part-time and delivered over 2 years, so the number can vary, but it's quite vibrant and quite healthy. And just to list off our 5 programs, we have MA History, MA History of Family, MA Public History and Cultural Heritage, MA in Local History, which is the part-time program taken in the evening. And the others, by the way, are part-time, can be taken part-time as well. And our new program that we're just introducing from September is our MA in Irish and Global Conflict History. Before I hand it over, I would like to introduce you to some of the historians, most of the historians that you are likely to meet along the way if you do take up our invitation to join us on the MA in any of the MA programs. Some of them are here and they'll be able to answer any particular questions that you might have, because a lot of them are course directors. The first person I see here and on my slide here, Aaron Donaghy. Aaron joined us a few years ago and is an expert on the Cold War, so 20th century history, American, European history. Richard Kerwin is an early modern historian of Europe. Richard currently has a very large research project investigating deviancy in universities in the German-speaking parts of Europe, but is available to supervise on MA programs. Niamh Nagan is the course director for the MA History and is an expert on Irish architecture, 19th, 20th century. Dr. Professor Ciara Brannock is an expert on the area of Irish medical history, medical humanities, digital history, history of family, and she's the course director for History of Family program. Myself, I'm an early modernist as well. I'm an Irish historian concentrating on the 18th century, and I'm the course director for the MA in Local History. Dr. Alistair Malcolm is an expert on Spain in the early modern period, so the 16th, 17th centuries, also interested in the Spanish Empire overseas, and also dabbles in elements of English history as well, particularly around the Tudor period. he delivers a module in the MA and other MAs, in the MA history and other MAs on art and power in the age of the Tudor and Stuarts. Dr. Rowan O'Donnell is also amongst us today, and with Aaron Donaghy, they are both co-course directors in the new Irish and global conflict history, and is an expert on the Troubles and republicanism and 20th century Irish history, amongst other things, I'm sure. Ruan might say. Carol Mullaney Dignam is also with us today, and she is an expert on the relationship between music and society, also the Big House. She is the course director of the MA in Public History and Cultural Heritage, so she has an expertise in that, and she teaches in the mostly 19th and 20th century periods, though sometimes goes further back as well. And finally, and also with us today is Rachel Murphy. Rachel is attached to the MA History of Family and teaches mostly in that area, has specific research interests in estates and landed estates, maps, digital history, and a little bit of social and medical history as well, I think we might add. They're most of us, and by and large, these are the people that you would be working with, depending on your area of expertise yourself. These are the people that would be supervising at MA level, and we all bring our particular research talents to bear. So many of our modules at postgraduate level draw on our expertise, which is unique to what we offer in UL. Oh, I had animated these, but I forgot that I had animated them. They just get bigger. So I'm not going to say anything much more because, as I said, I think you will be interested to hear what our alumni and what our students have to say about our programs. The new program, we obviously don't have students or alumni there, but we might be able to draw on the course directors if there are any specific questions or information that you might need about that. Una, is there anything in particular that I should have said that I haven't said, or colleagues? I don't want to take it up. Like a lot of the information, and I will have further contact information at the end on our programs and where you can find them, but it's all online and it's very easy to find that, and I suspect many of you have already found that.
We'll be posting out all the links actually to all the MA programs after this call as well.
Excellent.
So people can consult all the information, module content, program content, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, great. And so all of that information, all those names that I mentioned rather suddenly and quickly will be available thanks to Una. And so is it best now, Una, to hand it over to the, I'll stop sharing. I think I have stopped sharing.
Yeah, I think we have everyone there anyway. Do we?
Yeah, I think we do, to introduce Stuart Clancy. Stuart recently finished his PhD studies with Ciara Brannock, but did the MA History of Family, and so is a nice example of how one can progress from undergraduate right up to PhD level. Naomi Rice is currently a student on the MA History program, and Pierce Grimes, here on my left-hand side, is a recent graduate of the MA in Public History and Cultural Heritage. I had the privilege of supervising his dissertation. And finally, Ciarán O'Griffa has kindly joined us. Ciarán is a very recent graduate also of the MA in Local History program. So we're really very happy that they have taken the time out. I saw Naomi in the archives in the last hour, so we're really grateful. It's really great to have Naomi sacrifice a little bit of time, but everybody's time is so precious, so we very much appreciate it. And Una is going to chair this session, so I'll hand it over to her.
Hi everyone, you're all very welcome. So just to give the audience a bit of background on why you chose the MA programs, could you just introduce yourselves and your background specifically? And I'll start with Ciarán first of all, and why you chose to do an MA program and pursue an MA program?
Thanks very much, Una. Well, I suppose I always had an interest in history and in local history in East Clare, where I grew up. And there are things like there was a War of Independence ambush near where I grew up, and there were lots of crannogs and tower houses and things like that. And I found out about the MA in local history from people who done it in previous years and had enjoyed it. So I was interested in bringing the local experience and putting it into the context of national and regional context and that type of thing. And having always had a love for history, the Masters of Arts and Local History appealed to me. I also I chose UL because in the years before I did the Masters, I did a certificate and diploma in Irish under Dr. Deirdre Lanchik, and I got an understanding of how the university worked, and those are the reasons really why I got involved.
Great. So we might move on to Stuart then, and I believe, Stuart, you're nearly a lifer in UL. You've done a lot of your academic career within UL. You might give us an introduction to your background, I suppose, and why you kind of pursued history the whole way along in your academic journey.
Yep, sounds good. So yeah, 10 years behind the mast in UL. So I originally started with the arts degree, HPSS, I think it's gone now. And I did history and sociology for my undergraduate for 4 years. Funnily enough, I actually ended up doing my FYP as final year project in sociology, but made a last minute change at the start of the last semester and actually ended up doing it in history because I did a class called Irish Medical History. And I was like, oh, okay, this is really good, really interesting. I think I'd actually like to shift my focus back to history. So really got saved at the last minute, which is why I'm still here. So basically at the end of my FYP, end of 4th year undergraduate, still hadn't really everything figured out, what I wanted to do. And my FYP supervisor, Kira Bretnock, suggested maybe I do an MA in the history of the family. So basically the MA in the history of the family would have been a continuation of the FYP, which I really enjoyed doing so much, and it focused a lot on social history. And I was like, okay, this is absolutely perfect. This gives me 1 more year to figure out what I actually want to do. And lo and behold, by the time I'd actually finished the MA in the history of the family, I was like, okay, I'll do another 3 or 4 years of UL, and then I'll definitely have it figured out. So it was a good transition program to kind of bring me from undergraduate level to PhD. But even before I started the MA, I had no real intention of doing a PhD. It was kind of during that process that I figured out, okay, this is definitely what I want to do.
And it's interesting, you're both yourself and Kieran, that kind of previous experience of UL, and that kind of pushed you on to further study as well, which is interesting too, just goes to show
yeah, for sure,
the kind of excellence here as well. So I'll move on to our 2 current students and their experience of their programs. I might start with you, Naomi, and I believe you're working at the moment as well, so thank you for coming and giving up your lunch break here as well. But can you just give us an idea of why you chose to pursue a master's program as well?
So I did the undergraduate in arts in English and history, and I really enjoyed it. And I was kind of always leaning to more towards history, but I wasn't really sure if I wanted to pursue it further. So then everyone else was signing up for teaching. So then I put my name down for it as well, but they were all really excited, and I just wasn't. And I was like, oh, I don't think this is the right course. So then I started looking into the history MAs, and I was talking to some of my lecturers about it. And I just felt like it would really interest me, and I'm absolutely delighted I went into it now. So.
And how about you, Pierce, just on your motivation to do the program and why you chose to do the MA in Public History? and cultural heritage as well?
Well, I suppose I did my BA in UL as well. I did English and history, and like I was always interested in history from kind of a younger age. I used to enjoy visiting like all these historical sites around Ireland, and I suppose like I kind of how people lived in the past, like ordinary people and stuff. I always had a big interest in that. So I think that was always kind of reflected in the public aspects of public history and stuff. And I suppose like having studied history at undergraduate level at UL, I was kind of familiar with the reputation that UL was kind of having. Sort of, it was developing this kind of good reputation, I guess. And that was kind of reflected in the department as well. Because I thought there was like a really wide range of interests and topics and stuff that are catered for within the department. So like I thought it was a good place to kind of look at doing postgraduate study, definitely.
Very
And I
good.
was already familiar with the campus as well. So
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot of continuation of study and that kind of thing, which is fabulous to see actually amongst the panel as well. So can I just ask, I'll go back to Kieran again then, just in terms of what you enjoyed most about the programme, what kind of areas or topics or modules did you find most interesting within the MA in local history? There, Kieran, I'll go back to you first.
Yeah, so I would say that the most enjoyable thing was writing the dissertation, although it didn't seem right at that all the time, but to be able to say that you've done a certain amount of research and maybe at the knowing that it reached a certain standard was very good for self-confidence, and there was a sense of achievement in that. But also in the dissertation was done in the second year. Also in the first year, we did a number of modules where you got the skills that you need for your dissertation. So working with data and looking at online databases and archives and that type of thing. And the other thing that I enjoyed as well was we were kind of affected by COVID, but you were with like-minded individuals who have similar interests to you in history or local history, and I found that very inspiring and enjoyable.
And do you have any tips for people, I suppose, tackling a dissertation and that sort of thing? I know some people who are looking to apply to an MA program, you know, they find it quite intimidating, the thought of a dissertation. But do you have any advice to give to students who are looking to apply, and that might be the one thing that is scaring them a small bit or intimidating? Do you have any advice for anyone?
Well, I think the key relationship in that regard would be your relationship with your supervisor. I was very lucky to have a very good supervisor. I won't name her because she might get embarrassed, but she was brilliant. She helped. She didn't dictate to me what had to be done. She let me follow my own direction, but she guided me here and there, and it was very helpful through the whole process, and made the whole experience enjoyable. Like, she didn't dictate how the dissertation should be laid out or anything like that. I came up with my own structure, and she queried it, but when I could defend it, she said, "That's fine, go with that." And I felt I had a navigator at my side rather than someone dictating to me what's right and what's wrong. So
that's great. Yeah. It's great to have that support as well, and that encouragement, and that, you know, I suppose that
there are times she wasn't afraid to say, "You have to do more work before I can help you anymore. So go off now and do your work and get it done." But she was like, for an example, I wrote an opening chapter, but she identified that the opening chapter was too long and it was to be split into two chapters with different headings. So there was a kind of editorial advice, but I didn't do a chronological structure in my dissertation. I went with themes and case studies and that. And once I could defend them and show how they worked, I was allowed to keep that. So there was a sense of ownership of the project.
That's great, and it's great to come out with that finished piece at the end of your MA program.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stuart, just to move on to yourself, I know you pursued further study after the MA program, but just in terms of what you enjoyed most about the MA history of family, and what were the kind of seeds sown for the pursuit of further study after that, I suppose, you know, what did you enjoy most first of all, and what spurred you on again then to complete a PhD after that?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned already, the MA itself was what convinced me to do the PhD and that I wanted, you know, to actually pursue a career in this area. There's so many aspects of the MA that I think of that were like so important. I think one of the main, even though it was only just a one-day outing, was we went on a trip up to the archives in Dublin. And, you know, this is my first time using archives properly. Like I had, you know, used digital archives, newspapers, stuff like that, as you do a lot in the undergraduate. But it's actually quite intimidating to go up yourself, you know, like walk into an archive, you see all these people like telling you to hush, there's all these different forms you have to fill out. And it's quite good to like be shown around, you know, what you do, like how you navigate these kind of you know, systems that are often, you know, taken for granted by most people. So I thought that was really helpful. I think as well, my favorite aspect, I guess, going from undergraduate to master's was the kind of shift in the classroom dynamic, where it really, you know, the lecturer is like more so a facilitator, where, you know, when you're doing the undergraduate classes, you can't sit there for most of an hour. You hear what's being talked about, and then you might discuss it at the end for 5 minutes. But the majority of the class is everyone, you know, sharing ideas back and forth, getting into in-depth conversations. You know, people like the classroom gets really comfortable with each other. And, you know, sometimes you're sitting there and it ends up in, you know, a hot debate going around the room that, you know, you really feel the 2 or 3 hours like ticking by. So I think that's one of my favorite aspects of it by a mile.
Very good. And yeah, it's interesting. You're kind of reflecting some of the same elements that Kieran mentioned there around support and you know, that freedom to explore areas in further detail and that sort of thing, which is great. Naomi and Pierce, then I'll move on to you. Naomi first there. I know you're current students, so you're still going through a lot of the module content at the moment, or you know, I suppose experiencing some of it still. But what have you found has been the most beneficial for you and the most enjoyable, really?
I kind of like how different it is from the undergrad, because even in your modules, you just have so much more freedom. So like we were doing like cultural history last semester, and even though we all had to do a presentation, like everyone's was so different, and it's all about like what you're interested in. I just feel like you kind of like develop your research skills a lot more like with like the other people in your class, because you're all focusing on things that you want to focus on, but then you kind of show each other how you did it at the end. So I really like how we kind of all like work together and share ideas, and it just feels like a lot different from how like in the undergrad you're kind of given like a list of questions and told to go and answer one, or you might be allowed to make up your own, but in this it's kind of like it's a lot more up to yourself what you want to focus on. So I really like that.
Great. And you're working at the moment, Naomi, are you in an archive, is it? Or?
Yeah, I'm doing the internship module inside the archive as well. So it's been
Very
really good too.
Yeah, that's a great benefit to the MA in History and the MA Public History and Cultural Heritage program, actually. So it's yeah, it's a nice benefit, actually. And how do you find that practical experience as well, Naomi?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. So nice to do something different and to like actually see like what it's like inside in the archive, and to be able to like ask questions like while they're working about like what they're doing, and like to actually like gain skills and like experience things instead of just like reading about it online. It's definitely very different.
Yeah, and it's something that I suppose Stuart mentioned as well in terms of the trips and getting that hands-on experience. Well, it's so valuable for any student, MA student, to get that archival experience that they may not have had at an undergraduate level, which is great. And Pierce, do you have anything to add just on the aspects you enjoyed most about the MA Public History and Cultural Heritage?
So yeah, I actually graduated back in January.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
I kind of found that the obviously public history, it emphasizes kind of like the practice of history amongst the public, sort of outside of academia. So like it's a very practical kind of a hands-on area of history, and you develop a lot of practical skills. So for example, we had like a workplace component where we worked in a museum. I worked in a museum. So I kind of learned how to catalog a collection and how to digitalize it, and kind of the sort of wider processes of how all this works and stuff. So I found that was very useful. And then when I was doing my dissertation as well, I did a case study on 3 additional museums. So I was like sort of traveling around looking at all these places, and I got to interview people as well. So I gained a lot of practical experience that way. I was kind of traveling and meeting people and stuff. So it was a lot of fun as well. And it was kind of rewarding, you know, because you feel like you're sort of out there kind of doing it, as opposed to you're not 100% stuck behind a computer all the time. So that I found that good, yeah.
Yeah, the hands-on element is great, you know, and it's so valuable when you go to look for opportunities, you know, post-graduation and everything for any student really, you know. So what
Yeah,
advice?
I actually,
Sorry.
sorry, I just said I'd jump in quick as well.
Yeah, no worries.
I
Yeah.
also did the public history internship module, even though it's part of the history of the family. I actually did that in the Hunt Museum for 6 months. So it was just working 2 days a week or 1 day a week, I think, in the Hunt Museum. But I used to come in for an extra day because I actually really did enjoy it. It was a really good experience to, you know, actually work with, I guess, different kind of collections that I wasn't working with all the time. And also it was nice to, like saying, just get away from the desk for, you know, 1 day a week and kind of switch your brain off from thesis mode as well. So it was quite good to do that for the second semester.
And it's a great way to expand your network as well, isn't it? You know, if you're
Oh yeah,
looking for those
definitely.
opportunities, and even for yourself, Stuart, with your PhD as well, it was probably great to have those connections too, you know, moving on to
Yeah.
further study as well. So just to kind of wrap up here, really, just what advice would you give to anyone thinking of doing a postgraduate course? Looking back at when you first started and when you applied, and when you first kind of started your MA program, do you have any advice to any prospective students thinking of applying? I'll start with you, Kieran, first of all.
Well, if I would say that when I was 17, I didn't enjoy college that much, but I always wanted to get a master's. But I say to people, if they've had previous experience of college that hasn't been good, remember that the courses are there, and you can apply for them at any stage in your life, and it will be worthwhile. I work in the public service, so if I'm going for example, for promotion, I get automatic points for having a master's of arts. So it will help me in the long term, and I'm also it also helps you to view the world differently. I'm now involved with the Historical Society in Sixmore Bridge, where I'm from, and the discipline and training from the MA in local history it helps you put everything in context and adds to your life experience.
That's great. It's great to have such a positive experience and benefit from doing the program, do you know? Stuart, we might move on to you there then. Any advice that you could offer prospective students?
Yeah, I mean, one piece of advice I'd say is if you think you need to, you know, be definite sure that you want to pursue a career in history to do it, like that's definitely not the case. I think particularly for people at undergraduate level, it's a fantastic, almost extra bonus year to try and figure yourself out. Because, you know, at the end of the 4 years, you don't always have all the answers. And I thought it was, you know, a brilliant way to transition from, you know, undergraduate to PhD and figure things out. Like all the aspects of the MA history of the family that I did actually came into my, you know, current academic life. So, you know, the presentations that I was doing in front of the class, they kind of build you up for your conference presentations. You know, the essays that you're doing are following the same structure as the articles you're writing. Like for my MA thesis, I'm currently using that now. I've gone back to it to publish it, get it published as a journal article. So, you know, it's real research you're doing. It's not just a small little side project. You know, it's real meaningful research, and it's something you really have at the end of it that if you want to get it published, you can, you know, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and it's great grounding for further research and that sort of thing. It's great, you know, to complete MAs to get that research skills and research methodology as well, those skills, and hone them as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Pierce, we might move on to you then. What advice you would offer to prospective students or anyone thinking of applying also?
Yeah, I suppose I don't really think I have anything overly profound, but I think it's
That's
probably
okay.
I think it's probably no harm to kind of think in terms of your dissertation. Even if it's really early, and even if you don't even know what type of MA you want to do, because it can kind of inform what path you want to go down. And so, like, would say if you decide, right, well, I'd like to do my dissertation on I don't know, whatever, like I did mine on the Connacht Rangers and how they're represented in museums. So would say if you decide to do something that you want to research something like that, maybe public history might be a good way to go down. Or if you want to research like something to do with your family, you might want to do the MA in family history. And so and because it forms such a major component of the MA, I think it's no harm to be thinking about it kind of early, because it'll make life sort of easier for you. And I think as well, like if you're kind of struggling to find a topic, maybe it's no harm to think about something in your own sort of family or in your own locality, because usually that's where your own unique sort of contribution to history comes, and that's usually where the gap can be found as well. So
yeah, it's coming up with those topics and honing them, and yeah, it can be difficult at times, and I say it is challenging, but it's a great piece of advice there, just to take a new angle or a new I suppose position on something as well. Naomi, do you have anything to add just on advice for prospective applicants as well?
I kind of agree with what everyone said already, and I think like just going in, like you don't have to have like a perfect topic figured out, because like all of us change their questions so much, like after talking to even like each other and like our lecturers. So I think like you don't have to like have everything figured out. You going in, you can just have something you're kind of vaguely interested in and just go from there.
That's great. And I think that's everything, I suppose, that we were planning on going through today. But I just might open the floor to some of our course directors present here, just on the facilities that the library offer in conjunction with teaching on the MA programs as well. So you might give a bit of insight into how you work with the library and special collections, just on the that special relationship, I suppose, between the two. I don't know, David, if you want to take it, or someone else at all.
No, I think we could leave somebody else in there. Perhaps Carol or Niamh to start us with.
Yeah, that's no problem. Hi, everybody. I'm Carol Maloney-Dignam, the course director for Public History and the MA in Public History and Cultural Heritage. And thank you to everybody for joining, and thank you to our wonderful students and alumni for sharing their perspectives. Yeah, as Una said, we have a special relationship with special collections in particular in the library on campus. And one of the ways that the MA in Public History and Cultural Heritage work with the special collections is through facilitating teaching. So we have the archivists contribute to our program, both from the perspective of collecting archives and talking about how they promote archives and how they digitize archives. So we also work with the digital librarian there, and of course we encourage students to use the collections too, insofar as we can. And so we have some students working on topics relating to archival material in the archives. And we also then, where we can, facilitate internships with special collections, but also with the other public history institutions in Limerick City and in the locality. So it's important for us that, you know, and across the programs, I would say too, that it's not just faculty, it's not just the academic staff. We're also working with the other professional staff that are available on campus and in the region. And of course, most of our programs have a virtual component. And so most of our readings, for example, can be found online through the various ebooks that are supplied by the library too. So we have lots of close relationships with the people who facilitate the work that we do on the programs.
Thanks, Carol. Hi, everyone. Niamh McGowan here. I'm the course director of the MA History. I'd echo everything Carol said, especially thank you to all the students and alumni who are here to, giving of your time to share your experience. And I suppose just in terms of that, we have such rich archival holdings and rich sources in special collections for dissertations and thesis projects. And I think there's incredible work to be done in the archives that we have in UL. There's really wonderful untapped kind of archival resources that people can work on. And I think that the close relationships that we have with the archivists and with the team in special collections and in the library really allows you as a student to explore what's there and to perhaps identify something that can be a very rich seam of future research. Because I think the more that you can engage as a master's student with primary sources, particularly those that maybe haven't been engaged that fully by researchers before, the more exciting your own experience will be in terms of working on your projects. And I think some of the really excellent work that students have done on the MA program have taken the opportunity to engage with those primary sources that we have in the archives and special collections at UL. Thanks, Una.
Thanks, Niamh and Carol. Yeah, so I actually forgot to thank our current students and our alumni as well. So thank you very much as well. I just echo what Carol and Niamh have said there. Rachel is typing furiously at the moment, so I don't know what she's typing there.
I just come in on something that before Rachel there. Pierce mentioned how you might choose an MA, and it's exactly that. Some people will have an intense interest in military history, conflict history, and will be immediately going in that direction. Some will be interested in history at the familial level, just wishing to look at that level, that part of society. And so many different intersections can come in there, whether it's inheritance, whether it's childhood, whatever it is. Others at a different level of society, local history. Kieran mentioned this, your local area can often provide inspiration, and to put that into a wider context and even to grow those skills that you might hone, those skills that you might have. And then as Pierce so elegantly mentioned, the people may actually be thinking about careers in our public institutions across the country and beyond Ireland. And our MA in Public History and Cultural Heritage sets that up for you, provides those skills, makes those contacts. I mean, that network that Una mentioned can be so critical, and when we're thinking of CVs. So, I mean, thinking about what you want out of it. Many people simply do it for the passion, and I would always recommend that. Follow whatever you're passionate about, whether that's in the Cold War, the Northern Ireland Troubles, public, whatever it is, follow those passions. I think Rachel now wants to come in. I butted in instead.
I actually didn't have anything I was going to say. I was just going to post a message in the chat for the end, so I didn't really have anything to say beyond that. Really.
Aaron, do you want to speak to your new MA program and just to give people an overview, because I'm conscious that there's no alumni obviously because it's new, but you might speak to it there for a few minutes as well.
Yeah, thanks, Una. So yeah, we're developing. Hi everyone, and thanks for coming along. And thanks to our students as well for their excellent their input to our alumni. Yes, so we're launching a new program in Irish and Global Conflict History in September. And this is really designed for those of you who are interested in things like international history, diplomacy, war and peace, things like this. So it's geared towards, we'll have modules, for example, on the Northern Ireland Troubles, the Cold War. We'll look at the 2 world wars. So it's for those of you who are interested in conflict history and conflict resolution, relations between states, things like that. And I think, if we just look back to the past century alone, the most recent century, I mean, just to think about the enormous change in the world that arose because of conflict, the number of countries that emerged who gained independence from empires, the 2 world wars, which cost the lives of tens of millions of people, a Cold War, which spanned half a century, which effectively divided the world. And of course, we know from the wars going on at the moment in the Middle East, in Gaza and in Ukraine, that it has global implications. You know, it can affect the wider world. So we'll be looking at how conflict affects nations in different ways. We'll have special things like an archival workshop in the Glucksman Library. We'll also have a special field module where students will be going to battlefields, sites, things like that, museums, archives. I know Ruan, unfortunately, I think he's left now, but he can speak a bit more about that. So it's really geared towards those of you anyway who are interested in war and peace and issues surrounding that, conflict and conflict resolution. So if there's any questions at all, I'd be very happy to answer them. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Aaron. I don't see any questions coming in, but if anyone wants to unmute their mic as well, they're free. You should be able to unmute it there if you want to input that way. Also, don't see anything coming in at the moment.
While they're typing, what people might be typing, can I just ask some of our alumni or even Naomi, maybe anybody could jump in here. It's a question of affordability and the balance of time and the time commitment maybe that you would have to give to these sorts of things. Because I know, Naomi, for example, I see you in my local shop working away. What sort of time commitment and how do you balance the whole financial thing?
So I know that the SUSI grant improved for postgraduate courses like the year just gone. So now instead of getting 4,000 towards, I think you get 5. So that kind of all depends on like your family income too, but it's definitely worth looking into. It's a lot stricter than it is for the undergraduate, but it does still work out for like a lot of people. So for me, it's like I usually try and work kind of maybe 20 hours a week on side of my course. So I do like the weekend and maybe an evening or two in super value. So it kind of just depends on like, I suppose like how much time other people need. Like this semester has probably been a little bit more difficult because like I'm kind of coming in more to do like my internship. But then like there is the summer breaks and stuff too. So it's kind of like I find keeping a part-time job going. Sometimes it's good as well because like it takes you away from just sitting at a desk for hours and then you come back and you're kind of like refreshed and you're more focused on what you're doing. So yeah, I think like it's
so
hard
you have a nice balance going and it's possible, you know, to keep your part-time job and to progress it. Yeah. I think Niamh wants to come in.
Yeah, I found the same.
Oh, sorry, Stuart.
Sorry, I just said I found the same when I was doing my MA. I was like working in a pub in the weekends, so I'd work on Friday nights and Saturday nights. It was fine. And I just had one full day on a Thursday. So the way I'd work it out is I'd come into the library for 3 other days a week and try and keep it balanced from Monday to Friday. Obviously, when you get towards the last couple of weeks, that goes out the window. But for most of the year, I was able to keep my work from my college work to Monday to Friday, and I'd work then for the weekends.
Yeah. And I think here on, it's a little bit different with the MA Local History in that it's designed with people who work full-time in mind, and that's why the classes are in the evening on Wednesdays. What was your experience of working full-time and doing classes on Wednesday evenings?
Well, I don't have children, so I had ample spare time to work at it. But with the dissertation, I would try to do. It was kind of hard to apply sometimes, but I would try to do 2 hours in the evening, 4 evenings a week, just with the dissertation. I would have done less on the introductory modules, but and then a few hours at the weekend. And take one night off. Take a Friday night or whatever.
It's good that you can get. It's good that you can get one night off, which is the main thing.
Yeah. Well, I was fairly disciplined about that now.
I mean, it sounds as if and I suspect it's Pierce's experience too. You do have to be disciplined. I mean, that's one of the things when you are having to balance life and work and study all at the same time. I think Niamh wants to come in, and then Una probably has a few questions now at this stage.
Yeah, thanks, David. I just wanted to say, well, first of all, that I'm even more impressed with Naomi's excellent work, knowing how hard she works part-time as well, and Stuart as well. So just to say that we do really take into account the busy lives of people, as well as things like pressures on accommodation, you know, and the cost of doing an MA and things like that. So we try and work with students to make sure that the program is as flexible as possible for them. So there's, let's say if you're doing the MA history, for example, you know, there are some modules that are in person, but there are also modules that you can take synchronously. So you can tune in online and join the class with everyone else, or you can join asynchronously, so you can listen back and catch up later, and you can mix and match those to suit you and to suit your own life. And I think that flexibility is something that students really appreciate. And I suppose one thing I would always say is that if you're interested in applying, just to drop me an email and to have a chat about what the average week will look like and how you might balance, you know, whether, for instance, you think you might want to move to Limerick, or if you're living somewhere else, how many days you might be required to be on campus in the different semesters. And we can chat about that, and you'll get a better sense of that balance.
Yeah. No, that's good advice, and to contact any course director, because some programs are exclusively online or can be taken exclusively online, such as public history and history of family. So there are multiple different options. And do have that chat with the course director. They'd be delighted to talk to you. Una, do you have?
Yeah, so Connor has a question
there.
Hi, is there much funding available through UL too? Grants, fee waivers? I can nearly take that, David, if you want. There isn't a huge amount of fee waivers or funding through UL available, but we do have a section on the GPS site that gives you information on SUSI, on claiming tax back, and on funding opportunities as well. But there, unfortunately, is not a huge amount on, say, the scholarship side, that sort of thing. So I hope that answers your question there, Scott or Connor. Yeah, Pierce.
Yeah, just on that, there's the Student Assistance Fund as well.
Yes,
which is really useful. So if you're kind of struggling maybe financially in certain ways, you can apply for this. So I applied for it 1 year, and it actually managed to pay for my car insurance out of it. So it's really handy for that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Nearly be applying for that myself.
To most people.
But I mean, that's what it's there for, to support students, isn't it? So that's very useful. Una?
Yeah, and just to ask, just as Pierce brings that up, you know, how did you find the student supports in UL and in your time in UL, you know, in terms of Postgraduate Students' Union and the extra supports outside of just the academic side? I might put that to some of the panel there, Naomi or Pierce, if you want to answer that specifically.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, I mean, the main one academically would be the library. They're always very helpful. I mean, you could usually just email them with any query you had, and they'd always kind of point you in the right direction. There's the writing centre as well. They do a lot of dedicated work towards postgraduates. They do a lot of workshops and things like that. They have like a one-to-one sort of peer tutoring thing as well. I mean, I suppose more personally as well, there's kind of like there's a lot of sort of mental health services as well. So if you're kind of struggling with stuff, and not even in terms of counselling, they do put on kind of workshops about how to balance your time while you're in UL. You know, how to, you know, if you're under a heavy workload, how to manage that. Like, so a lot of that stuff is always pretty useful to people, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good to highlight it as well, because it can be stressful at times to complete a master's program. So it's good to know that there's a wide range of supports available to students if they attend UL as well. I don't know, Naomi, if you have anything to add there as well, also, just from your own experience.
Pierce fairly covered it.
That's great.
But, I think as well, like the lecturers and like your classmates and the masters are like amazing, because like anytime we do any presentation, like everyone's so supportive of each other, and like you just really grow in confidence, like because like everyone is just really there for each other, and it's just a really nice experience.
That's great. It's great to hear that there's such a positive experience as well. We have a hand up there if Kwabene wants to unmute his mic there. Their mic. They have their hand up anyway. It's put down again, I think. I don't know if it's a false hand up or not.
But if does it work just on the supports as well? Like I found when I was completing the history of the family MA that everyone who you're in the MA with is actually very like-minded, and you get a lot of support from each other without having to go directly to the lecturers or tutors themselves. I think as well, just for anyone who's considering doing it online, the UL kind of not Solace Brightspace is gone miles better in recent years since I've even done it, where there's a lot of interactive forums and stuff. So people are interacting a lot more even when they can't be in the same space together, and they have this support structure around them, where if you don't want to be dropping a more formal email to your lecturer, despite how amazingly approachable everyone here is, it's nice to pop in the chat and people can talk to each other about it, which is quite recent developments due to technology.
That's a great point, Stuart, isn't it, around that peer-to-peer support as well, and you see that on a lot of our postgraduate programs as well. I think Kwabene, apologies now for mispronouncing your name. I think
yes, okay.
Yeah, you're coming through there now. Yeah, hello. We can hear you.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Yeah,
hello.
My name is Kwabena from Ghana. I'm trying to find out that I'm a trained teacher with 11 years of teaching experience, and I hold diploma in basic education and bachelor's of education as well. So I was trying to find out that if I can qualify for the Masters in History program.
You sound like you've relevant experience, which I might get Niamh to speak to this, just in terms of you've a lot of academic qualifications, so I'm assuming that will be relevant experience, but you might speak to that, Niamh, just on the MA in History itself.
Yeah, hi, lovely. Yeah, hello, lovely to hear from you. What I might do is ask you to drop me an email directly, Kwabene, and then we can just set up a call to discuss your specific experience. Would that be okay?
Okay, all right.
Great, I'll be in touch.
Okay, so can you send me maybe the emails that I can bring in my questions and put in my credentials for you to look at?
Brilliant, thanks. Look forward to chatting to you in person.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I don't see any more questions coming through there on the chat. I don't think there's anything else on it, unless anyone wants any to put through any last minute questions or unmute your mics there. Might give them a couple of seconds. I don't think so there now. So just
they're already so convinced that they will be coming, hopefully, to see, and I look forward very much to seeing some of the people here on the webinar who've joined us as our guests next September. And in the meantime, as all the course directors have said, they would be delighted to talk to you if you have any specific questions. And just as head to thank Pierce, Stuart, Naomi and Kieran again, and to you, Una, for facilitating this and organising this. We're very grateful to you. And so thank you very much. Una, I'll give you the last word if you'd like.
Nothing to add really, just to say thank you all, in particular to our alumni and student panel. You were so you offered so many insights, and it's really great to hear from people that have taken the programme or are in the process of completing their MA as well. So thank you so much for that, and for all our faculty present today. It's great to have you inputting on your own programmes as well, and providing insights into the programmes too. So I think that's it really. Thank you so much for coming. I'll be following up with an email, and I will send all the relevant MA programs we've discussed today via email to all of you that have attended today. And if you have any further questions for me, particularly on the application process, fees, funding, that sort of thing, please feel free to contact me also. I'll stay on the line for a few minutes if anyone has any last minute questions that they want to speak to me one-on-one about. But thanks very much everyone for attending, and we really appreciate your insights, particularly the panel and everyone else. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Una.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Una. Thanks everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Best of luck.